Hello everyone, welcome to the Adkup Show. If you have checked your phone, swiped through the news, or even peeked at your grocery list this week, you have probably felt the ground shake. On April 2, 2025, President Donald Trump unleashed what he is calling Liberation Day, a tariff plan so massive, so audacious that is sending shockwaves through every corner of the global economy. After Liberation Day tariffs, the weighted average US tariffs rate has jumped to a whopping 29%. That's higher than the Smoot-Hawley levels from Great Depression era. The oil prices have already started collapsing as economies prepare for a recession. As of April 5, a 10% tariff is now live on every single import coming into the US, from Canadian maple syrup to Chinese smartphones. And that's just the opening act. The next week, on April 9th, tariffs as high as 49% are about to get slammed into 57 countries around the world. Wall Street is in a tailspin. World leaders are freaking out, and for the next pair of sneakers, Americans might have to pay double. So what the heck is happening? Is this Trump's masterstroke to bring back Made in America, or are we all about to crash into a global trade nightmare? We're gonna discuss all this in this video. So without wasting time, let's get started. Let's set the scene. It's Tuesday, April 2nd, 2025, and President Trump strides up to the mic and drops a bombshell. He declares a national emergency. Not over a war, not over a pandemic, but over something he says has been bleeding America dry for decades: trade deficits. He pulls out a dusty old law, the International Emergency Economic Power Act of 1977, straight out of the Jimmy Carter's era, and says it's time to fight back. His weapon is tariffs. From now on, every single thing the US imports, which was approximately $3.1 trillion worth of goods last year, will now get hit with a 10% tariffs. That's right, everything from French wine to Mexican avocados to Vietnamese laptop. But hold on, because that's just the appetizer. Now, if that wasn't enough, Trump's got a second punch. Starting April 9th, just 3 to 4 days from now on, 57 countries with big trade surplus get whacked with what he calls reciprocal tariffs. These are custom rate designed to mirror what those countries supposedly charge the US. China is looking at 34%, Vietnam is getting crushed with 46%, Cambodia is slapped with staggering 49%. Trump's team says this is about fairness, which is actually turning out to be reciprocity. If you have got surplus with the US, then it's time for you to reduce those surpluses and let the US earn something out of it. The White House claims this will force the world to rethink how it trades with America, bring jobs back to the US, and fill government coffers with cash. But it looks like the rest of the world is not clapping. They are panicking, and it's for the good reason they are panicking. This isn't just a tweak to trade policy, it's a sledgehammer. Trump has done tariffs before also, and China took a beating in his first term. But this time it's totally a different story. This is a whole new beast. So let's unpack it and check what's the plan and who's feeling the heat. Okay, let's get into the numbers, because this is where it hits home. The US is the king of consumption. It's the largest consumer market in the world. There is a market for all kinds of product in the US. Last year, 2024, the US imported $3.1 trillion in goods, according to the US Census Bureau and Bureau of Economic Analysis. That import included everything: cars, clothes, coffee, you name it. Now slap a 10% tariff on all that, and you are talking $310 billion in extra cost, assuming nothing changes. That's a big if. If nothing changes and we know that it will change for sure. Now, add those higher reciprocal tariffs, 34% on China, 46% on Vietnam, and the tax foundation says this would balloon into a 1.8 trillion tax hikes on Americans over the next decade. Here we are talking about trillions with capital T. Trump's team says that money is coming straight back to the US, funding tax cuts, roads, maybe even the border wall, which Trump would love to have. It all sounds like a big win, but here's where it gets dicey. Imports don't just sit there and take it. If prices jump because of inflation, then people will buy less or countries will ship less. The tax foundation estimates imports could crash by $900 billion in 2025 alone. That's a 25% drop. Less stuff coming in means less tariff cash. Suddenly that $310 billion looks shaky. And with that, the economy is also not looking pretty. High frequency economics ran the numbers. They say these tariffs could slice 10% off US GDP in Q2 of 2025, which is April to June. That's just months away. Picture the US $2.5 trillion quarterly economy taking a $250 billion hit. JPMorgan is showing even darker picture. They have jacked up their 2025 recession odds to 60% because higher costs don't stop at the port, they ripple everywhere. According to JPMorgan, both business sentiments and consumer confidence has slumped in the US, and a slowdown in the US could weigh on global growth. Now let's make this real and try to understand all this with an example. Imagine you are at Walmart grabbing a $10 pair of sneakers from Vietnam. With a 46% tariff, that pair of sneakers will cost $14.60 before tax. A $1,000 iPhone from Vietnam with 46% will cost $1,460. Routers say Apple might push it to $2,300 if they tack on supply chain costs. Inflation is already creeping up. You can expect it to roar. Food is not safe either. Half of the avocados which the US consumes comes from Mexico. Expect prices of those avocados to rise. Trump has put a 25% tariff on anything which dodges USMCA rules. That $2 avocado will now cost $2.50. Now even markets are in a big mess. On April 3rd, the day after announcement of the tariff, the S&P 500 dipped by 4.9%. That's the worst drop since the COVID panic of June 2020. Over $1.7 trillion in market value vanished at the opening bell. By the April 4th, the global stock had bled $2.5 trillion combined. Traders are sprinting to safe bets because they are terrified about what's going to happen next. This isn't just Wall Street noise, it's your retirement funds and your kids' college savings. If you're invested in it, then you are worried right now. Now let's widen the lens. This isn't just America's drama, it's a global showdown. China didn't waste time. On April 4th, Beijing fired back with a 34% tariffs on all US goods, which will be effective from April 10th. That's more than $140 billion of American exports. Things like soybean, Boeing jets, Tesla batteries are about to get way pricier in China. The US trade deficit with China was $295 billion last year. Tariffs on US agricultural exports by China will definitely hurt the American farmers who are big supporter of Republican Party and Donald Trump. Canada is not sitting pretty either. For now, Trump spared most USMCA goods, but 25% tariffs on steel and aluminium are back. Ottawa is talking about export surcharges, maybe even a US boycott. Mexico is also in the same boat, linking tariff to fentanyl and migration demands. South of the border, it's getting tense. By the way, Trump is putting tariffs on Mexico and Canada because of fentanyl and other drugs. If you're interested in understanding if tariffs will really work on solving the narcotics problem, then check out my video. The link is in the description. Then there's EU. French Emmanuel Macron has called Trump's 20% tariffs on European goods as brutal and unfounded. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has called tariffs as fundamentally wrong. Now the EU is preparing for a retaliation. They're planning to put tariffs on orange juice, Levi's jeans, Harley Davidson, etc. And it's set to hit by mid-April. This is a trade war on fast forward. Now check out Southeast Asia. Vietnam is staring down a 46% tariffs, which will be devastating for their tech and shoe export. But here's the plot twist. On April 4th, they agreed to negotiate with Trump to lower it. Cambodia's got it worse. Trump slapped 49% tariffs on them. Their garment industry is now on life support. The Director General of WTO dropped a warning on April 3rd. This tariff war could trigger a cycle of retaliation, and she's not kidding about it. The WTO now predicts a 1% drop in global trade volume this year, a 4% downgrade from pre-tariff forecasts. The rule-based trade system on which the world has leaned on since the World War II has started showing up cracks. We are witnessing deglobalization in real time. So now the question is, who's coming out on top? Trump is betting on US workers. Take this hammer. If tariffs make foreign goods cost more, maybe more gets forged in Ohio or Pennsylvania. The White House says companies like Nissan and General Motors are already whispering about ramping up US production. That sounds good. They are dreaming of a manufacturing comeback, steel mills humming, car plants hiring, maybe even tech trickling back. But it's a huge if. Supply chains don't flip overnight. Reshoring takes years, not months. Moreover, if manufacturing has to take off in the US, then dollar value needs to come down, as currently manufacturing in the US is very expensive. Reindustrialization of the US is a very complicated task. We need to wait to see if Trump policies are really effective in reindustrializing the US or not. Now, who might be the loser in this game? Let's start with a tech which is in a big trouble. Apple, Nike, Walmart. Anyone who's importing from Asia is facing cost tsunami. Nintendo just delayed US pre-orders for the Switch 2 to assess tariff impacts. The American consumers are next in the line. That $1.8 trillion tax hike is not on some CEO. It's on an average American consumer. The tax foundation breaks it down to $1,900 per household in 2025. Prices for car payments, phone bills, groceries are gonna increase very soon. Retailers can't eat those costs forever. They will pass them on. Globally, it's a split verdict. American workers might win if jobs return. Steel towns could see a pulse again. But what about other poor countries like Cambodia? That 49% tariffs could gut their textile trade. Think millions of jobs lost. Vietnam's tech's gonna get stalled unless they cut a deal. China is already wobbly. More tariffs could sink their recovery. This isn't just a US story, it's a world teetering on the edge. Here's the $1,000,000 question, or probably a $1 trillion question. Will this really work? Trump's team says it's a reset. Force the world to play fair. Claw back the wealth which the US has lost. To be fair, the US has got a point. China has been juicing subsidies forever, and the US's $779 billion trade deficit isn't pretty. But the data is a mixed bag. The Tax Foundation says tariffs might shrink GDP by 0.4% in the long term, plus another 0.1% from retaliation. That's $500 billion evaporated. History has got warnings too. Smoot-Hawley tariffs in 1930 tanked trade 60% and deepened the Great Depression. So are we headed there? Maybe not, or maybe yes. It's too early to say. Boston Consulting Group says 80% of global trade doesn't even touch the US, but a 1% hit still stings a $25 trillion world economy. Experts are all over the map. Navarro's camp call it a bold fix for decades of bad deals. But Fed Chair Jeremy Powell admitted yesterday that they are scrambling. The scope is bigger than we modeled, he said, hinting at emergency rate cuts. JPMorgan's 60% odds aren't hype. But flip it, if Trump is right and companies rush to the US, then maybe we see factories buzzing by 2030. To be honest, chances of that happening is very less. The US is a declining power. The chances for achieving big success is very low. It's a high wire act. America's economy, the world's stability, all are hanging in the balance. So the tariffs are live. Your wallet's taking the hit. Markets are reeling and the world is picking teams. Trump is all in on America first, but at what cost? A trade war that drags us all down, or a win that rewrites the game and history? What's your take? Are tariffs saving or sinking the US? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this deep dive got you thinking, smash that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe. We are following the story as it explodes. Until next time, stay sharp, stay questioning, and I'll see you soon. Peace out.